Welcome everyone to this month's Rarebirds Mentor Deep Dive, AI and the Future of Business, What, How and Now. My name's Tegan and I am the Partnerships and Community Manager here at Inspiring Rarebirds, and today I'm joined by Stewart Marshall, SaaS advisor, investor, mentor, speaker, translator of IT gibberish and author, who will be demystifying AI and emerging technologies and what the implications are for the future. To begin, and in the spirit of reconciliation, Rarebirds would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, and I would like to recognise the Awabakal people, the traditional custodians of where I'm broadcasting from today, and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. For those of you who are new to the Inspiring Rarebirds community, our mission is to support and promote diversity and inclusivity where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. We are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer a range of educational masterclasses. We host online and in-person events, providing people with the opportunity to build their network and grow with the Rarebirds community. If you'd like to learn more, please indicate your interest in the survey at the end, or you can reach out to me or anyone in the Rarebirds team. We're always happy to have a chat. Today, you will be able to use the chat function that you see over on the right-hand side of the screen. You can use that to introduce yourself, comment on what's going on, connect with others. There is also a Q&A tab that you can put your questions in there throughout the presentation, and we will get to them at the end. Or at the end, you can pop your camera and mic on and you'll be able to ask Stewart directly. So I would like to introduce Stewart, who has spent over 30 years in the IT industry, including in executive roles, consulting to industry and government, and more than 20 of those years spent at the cutting edge of software R&D and digital transformation. He is also the best-selling author of Kick Some SaaS, the Software Leader's Guide to Creating Global Impact, and Doing It for Money, a business leader's guide to improving profit per person, which is available today to download in the handout section, or it will be included in the wrap-up email. So Stewart is on a mission to make purpose-led action an everyday activity for millions of users and to show technology leaders how they can turn their tech into a global impact juggernaut. Welcome, Stewart.
Thank you very much, Tegan. Entirely my pleasure. It's absolutely fabulous. My favorite of favorite things is sharing the, optimistically call it wisdom that I've acquired over the many years. So where are we? Slides. There we go. AI. I've given this presentation before and I titled it Keep Calm and Carry On in a good English kind of way. But I'm subtitling it with It's Just Maths and Text Parsing. So I'm going to tell you now essentially why AI is nothing we should worry about and why we should be embracing it. So who am I? Oh, hang on, I haven't got, there we go, look at that. I haven't got animations, there you go. So I am a SaaS advisor, which means I advise software businesses on how to go about being a software business. I'm a best-selling author, now have a couple of books. I've been doing this for 30 years, including leadership at WiseTech. I've spent 20 years of that in R&D at the sharp end time. And I am a translator of IT gibberish, which means I try my very, very best to turn all of the complicated nonsense that you hear from people like me and try and turn it into nice, simple, understandable ideas that normal man in the street can cope with and can actually use and make deliver some real value for them. I have to click in the right place. Now then, hang on a moment. That's what I'm missing. There we go. So a little bit of history for you. Firstly, I'm going to explain where AI comes from. Then we're going to look at what it isn't, which is an important thing to understand because there's a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. Then I'm going to tell you what it is, give you some ideas around how best to apply it, and then we'll finish off with a little best guess at where the world is heading. So let's start with some history. This is Talos. And Talos was one of the really sort of very early examples of recorded AI as a notion. He was the mythical guardian of the Isle of Crete. And as you can tell from the picture, he was constructed of bronze. And apparently, according to history, would walk around the island 3 times daily, throwing rocks at anybody who didn't want to be there. And of course, you know, such was the life in the classics. But of course, it didn't end well. And Jason and the Argonauts turned up one day, and they pulled the plug out of his heel, and all the ichor got out. And that was sadly the end of Talos. But these are the sort of first early example. But if we look again through history, AI has reared its head many occasions. And one of these, of course, was the Hebrew golems. They were existing in the Middle Ages. Mary Shelley, she invented Frankenstein and his monster, of course. And then we get our friend in the middle here, Arnie, as the Terminator. And the reason I talk about these is because I want you to understand that the ideas behind AI and the sort of the notions, the humanizing requirements of it have been around since the dawn of time. And they really speak at a very basic level to our sense of fragility as humans. And we're driven, it seems, as intelligent beasts to create things that are superior to our, as I like to call it, puny biological selves. So if we then drag ourselves forward into something roughly equivalent to the modern era, we're looking at modern AI and the first artificial neural network. And that's been around since the 1950s. And it's our first effort at creating or recreating the neural pathways that exist in the mammalian brain. And there's an important point to understand here, which is that this basic idea, this neural network, is the same notion that exists at the center of all artificial intelligence today, or the vast majority of it, 99.7% of it. It's nothing new. And of course, like any new tool back in the 50s and 60s, we were beset with rampant optimism as to what it was going to deliver for us. And why not? We have these new technologies, they're going to rule the world, right? And I'll put that in some context for you. And here's a few quotes. I won't read them because I'm sure you can all read, but they're all very, very optimistic that we were going to solve these things in a few years. My favorite one at the bottom, Marvin Minsky, who was a computer scientist of the day, who thought by 1970 that 50 years ago we would have solved general intelligence of the average human being. Now we might argue that, of course, is somewhat of a dim view of the average human, but you know, here we are. And it brings on to the idea, of course, that what AI isn't, because of course, as you've probably guessed, it's not worked out as we thought it might. And this is a typical optimistic technologist's perspective. So it wasn't until 1997 that Gary Kasparov was beaten by Deep Blue, which was IBM's first effort at a chess machine. And while we might think that Gary Kasparov was an extraordinary chess player and was beaten by a machine is quite extraordinary, in reality, chess is quite a simple game. Now, when I play chess, and it's for me quite a complicated game, but in practical terms, there's not many things that we can do in any given scenario. There's only 30 some odd first moves we can make, for example. So AI is brilliant yet simple, as it were. And it still, of course, can't do the work of any man. You know, most of us are not about to be replaced anytime soon, and it certainly doesn't have general intelligence as we would think of as a typical human intelligence. So, despite Mr. Minsky's optimism, the problems of artificial intelligence haven't been substantially solved. And I can say this with some certainty because AI today isn't intelligent. Artificial, yes. Intelligent, absolutely not. Now, we might look, for example, at ChatGPT and think that when we ask it for a response, that what it says feels intelligent, but it's not. It's clever mimicry. And to get that, we've invested huge amounts of money, vast amounts of time in building these neural networks and AI models, as we refer to them. They take a lot of training. But of course, we're human. And the first thing we do, just as we do when we see faces everywhere, we tend to anthropomorphize things. We make them feel human. We give them these human traits. And because of that, they feel superior, because they tend to just do things that we think, oh, wow. But the reality is that they're just plodding along. They're just doing what they've been told to do. But of course, as I like to say, we're scared little ignorant little reptiles. That deep down in the center of our brains, we have this freeze, fight, or flight sort of thing that goes on. And it's important for us to understand this, because we shouldn't be scared of AI. Yet at our core, we are. We're very frightened of anything new. The reason for this is that we tend to exist through a very simple lens, which is the stuff that I did yesterday that didn't get me dead is okay to do again today. And that's kind of like a good way of going about life. It keeps us alive. But it's not brilliant sometimes. But so we need to get past this fear and this thing, because we need to be a bit more rational about this. And we need to be a bit more objective. And if I had the animation, this little red bit in the middle would come along in a moment or two. But the important point is that AI is not going to take our jobs. Not going to take all of our jobs, certainly. I mean, we hear this as a regular sort of commentary. AI is going to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's all going to be terrible. We're going to catastrophize. When ChatGPT arrived 18 months ago or so, the fear that was in the press was extraordinary. But the reality is, once we get past this sort of hyperbole and look at what people are really thinking, it's not quite the same. So there was a Harvard meta study, for example, a few years ago, and they asked all the great and the good what they thought. And there were some telling me that the world was going to end and we will never work again, and others saying that AI is going to create 1 million jobs, billions of jobs. And the conclusion of the meta study is that we haven't got the first clue as to where things are and where we're going. And we kind of, if we stick our finger up and suck it and see, then, we're kind of going to be okay. Now, of course, individuals are going to get replaced with AI. That's no debate about that. But we have no evidence whatsoever about this sort of wholesale loss of employment. So we really shouldn't be too frightened about what AI is going to do and how it's going to affect us. And I'll take you back to the 1980s, when we heard exactly the same arguments. As a young lad growing up in the UK, all we heard about was how computers were going to take all of our jobs. And so everybody thought. But unemployment in 1979, 1980 in Australia was about 5%. And unemployment today is about 5%. And since then, in the last 40 years or so, we have literally sold billions of PCs. So computers haven't taken all of our jobs. And in fact, of course, we're all walking around now with a far more capable computer in our pocket than the one that put man on the moon in 1969. So computers it's not man and machine. It's really man or, it's not man or machine, it's man and machine. We work in harmony with these things. So this brings me on to what AI actually is. And this is really where we need to start thinking about how wonderful the world is actually going to be. Because when we understand what AI is and how it can help us, then we can get past our fear and we can start dealing with the reality of things. And I'm going to introduce you to this lovely little pithy aphorism from the world of technology, which is this year's AI is next year's software. Now, what that basically says is, however clever we think we are this year, we're going to be a little bit cleverer next year, and all this is going to seem very passé. And that's absolutely right. AI is, today's AI is just this evolution of 60 years or so of effort. And ChatGPT is just the next embodiment of that. And ChatGPT will look stupid and ignorant within, with no time at all. So the important thing for me about ChatGPT is, I think about it, is of course that it became popular because it looked like Google. It was just a box. I could type something and I'd press enter and an answer would come out. So, they're just the next iterations. They're just this thing that we can use. It's a tool. And really, when we look down at what AI actually is, it's this. It's clever maths and text parsing. So maths for people with far more better math skills than me, and some chopping up of text by the word and not by the letter. And if you want to test that, you can go and ask ChatGPT how many B's in banana. And I think it generally comes back and says there's 2 or 3, because we haven't chopped it up by the letter. We've only done it by the nearest word. So ChatGPT kind of guesses. So I don't want to diminish the brilliant work that my colleagues in this space are doing. What we've created is extraordinary, but the reality is that it's quite simple. It's some maths, it's some text parsing. We chop it up, we get a big pile of data, or essentially we copy the internet, which is what we call a large language model, and we do some maths on it, and then we do some training. And that means that we adjust the weighting models in our neural network to help them understand how and why something is good, bad, and so on. The most important thing for us to understand, because it's just maths and because it's just text parsing, that it has no moral compass. It is not human, has no sense of good or bad, no right or wrong. And if we ask a large language model what the capital of Australia is, it has no idea what Australia is. It doesn't know what a capital is, and it certainly doesn't have any sense of what Canberra is. But what it does have is the ability to look at the words Australia, capital, and see what comes up most often when looking for that, and the answer, of course, is Canberra. So that's how it comes up with its answer. So it's simply based on the data it has available and the maths that's been applied to it. And that means there's a really interesting problem, and something we should absolutely focus on, which is that we cannot trust AI. It cannot be trusted to do whatever we deem to be the right thing. And we, of course, have great difficulty ourselves in understanding sometimes what's right and what's wrong. Now, way back in the 90s, when I was a young man in my first IT job, I had a regional manager, and I delivered his PC for his first ever computer. And when I put it on his desk, he said, "Oh, rubbish in, rubbish out." And he basically repeated that statement every time I went to his office thereafter. And his point was that whatever data goes into a computer system, that's the fundamental limit of how good it can be. If we give it bad data, then we're bounded by that, and the outcomes are going to be the same. And that still applies today, of course. So an AI is no different, because it's just data. And of course, we see this manifested today in the AI systems, because they are racist, and they are sexist, and they are ageist, and they are whatever other bias you wish to criticize them for. They will manifest themselves. And of course, that's because the data they are using comes from humans. And history, of course, is littered with badly behaved humans whose rationale were based on their own flawed learnings. So not only can we not trust systems like ChatGPT or Microsoft's Copilot or whatever, because they learn from their input, what we have to say that they're getting dumber, or they can be, because we're putting information in. So quite often when we're using AI prompts, that they will absorb the questions that are being asked and use that as additional data, which means, of course, there's a fair risk that the information we're putting in is actually dragging them down. And there was some research from Stanford not so long back that suggested quite strongly that ChatGPT was getting worse at maths. And I amusingly suggest that there's a reason for this, which is it's our fault. And the reason is that we take some clever people, or they take some data from the internet and they polish it up and they make it good, and it does really good work, and then some average of humanity gets applied to it. So the people on the internet use it, who are essentially the average of humanity. So we kind of, in my sort of tongue-in-cheek way, suggest that we're regressing to a human mean. I don't know if it's true incidentally, but it's kind of, it amuses me to think that it might be. But the important lesson in all of that is that if we can't trust these tools, then we must have human oversight. And we must consider that what we're doing requires humans to decide ultimately whether something is right or wrong. And we've also, many of you, I'm sure, have seen Little Britain, and the computer says no sketches. And it's the same kind of idea. So whether we use that, however we're using AI, we need to make sure that we critique the output that it's producing. And it's why critical thinking skills are really so important, or increasingly important. And there's a good little story that goes with this of a New York lawyer who decided in the early days of ChatGPT to use it as to help him build his case to send to a judge. And Judge Castell on receiving it. And then there's a direct quote. It says 6 of the submitted cases appear to be bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. So ChatGPT basically made up some stuff and returned it as a result. To which the lawyer replied, and again, it's a direct quote, he said he was unaware that its content could be false. Well, lesson for us all there. So let's get a little quick recap. AI is brilliant, it's flawed, it's imperfect and cannot be trusted. It's not going to take all our jobs, and if we're pragmatic about it, it's just a tool, as any other software is and any other computer is, and it's going to help us do whatever it is that we want to do. So help us be better at what we're doing. So that brings me on to using AI. So excuse me, right? And what all this means in practical terms, a bit more reality for you. And I'm going to suggest this is the way we start. What problem are you trying to solve? Now, this is just a technology. It's just an evolution of all that's gone before, and we should treat it the same. And I would say this to anybody that I'm working with is when they're trying to build some software systems is, well, what problem are you trying to solve for people? We shouldn't be just making things for the fun of it. We need to have a reason and a rationale for doing it. And if we're not, we're going to spend our time tilting at windmills and trying to apply something for the wrong reasons. So, as I said before, this is a case of man and machine, not man or machine. So we should be looking at our use of AI from the perspective of how can we help our people? How can we help our people, our team, whoever it might be better at what they're doing? So we shouldn't start from the point of view of replacing someone. We need to think in terms of how we can augment people. And a good example of this was something I saw at the New South Wales Government AI Summit last year, which is some work that's come out of UNSW, where they are helping the water companies test water pipes. Now, you might wonder how AI can help with that. Well, what they're actually doing is they're listening to the sound of water going through a pipe. And they use some complex Fourier analysis to convert this sound into sine waves, apparently. And what it helps them find is that they can be much more accurate with regards to which pipes need fixing. And in fact, what we're finding is that engineers are perhaps only about 5% better than luck as to whether they're correct or not. And AI is significantly more capable of getting to the right answer. Most important point there is that AI did not come up with the idea of listening to the water. That was a human. Human said, hey, if we listen to the water, can we test it? Can we be more accurate? Can we apply some clever maths to it? And that's exactly what they've done. The second thing we need to do is to understand the value and the why of why we're doing it, because there's no point in doing something if there's no value to it. So if we want, for example, to use AI to generate a social media post or whatever it might do, there's going to be a stack of tools available already, and they're generally likely to be free or very, very cheap. And they're free and cheap because they're mass market solutions, and they solve simple, low value problems. If we want a predictive train model, for example, of the Sydney train network, which is another thing that they've built at UNSW, I saw last year, that we can actually use to simulate what would happen if there's a train accident somewhere up at Chatswood, let's say, for example. What is the knock-on effect of that? We can actually simulate that with this huge piece of AI and this large model that they've built. Now, of course, that requires extraordinarily specialized tools, vast amounts of effort and money and so on and so forth. Of course, the value proposition is massive. So those are our rules. Try and help people, make sure we understand the value we're going to deliver with it. So we're back to this notion of right then. So what tool should I use? Well, what's the right one? Well, the one that's right enough, the one that solves the problem today. Because as I said earlier, AI is, this year's software is next year's, so this year's AI is next year's software. These things will evolve. Whatever we're using today is going to get better. If I buy a car this year, the one I buy in 5 years' time will be marginally improved. So the right tool is the one that's the best for the job. And of course, that's a generally accepted theory. Use the best tool for the job, the right tool for the job. And the right one is the one we learn to use used properly. Yeah, we go and do some training, we go and get some education, we learn to use it wisely, then we have the right tool for the job. And it's why we in the IT industry typically say that implementation is everything. It's not about what the tool can or can't do, it's whether we use it correctly. All right, so I'm rapidly running out of time, so that brings me very quickly onto what's left of AI and where we're going next. And basically what we're going to see is more of the same. We haven't substantially changed how we're doing AI. There's no new paths being offered, or very few new paths being offered. Quantum computing is still some time away. So we're going to do more of it. We're going to have bigger machines. They're going to be more powerful, but they're going to do more. And we're just going to get a bit better at it. More and more vendors will come along. More and more tools will come along. We will democratize it more. And we'll use it absolutely everywhere. So transport, healthcare, entertainment, anything you can imagine, every sector is going to embrace the new tools as they turn up. The job market will change. People will lose their jobs. Yes, absolutely. Some people will. Some new jobs will be invented, and people will benefit from that on the other side. So we'll lose some of our dull, repetitive, and dangerous tasks because machines are going to make them easier for us to do. But we're going to have new jobs that come into being. And for example, 5 to 10 years ago, you never saw jobs with data in the title, or hardly any jobs. Today, we have data analysts, scientists, architects, engineers, translators, cleaners, and a great many other jobs besides, because we need data. But of course, AI is limited because it's not creative human intelligence. It's mimics, as I said earlier. So to understand that, simple idea of why we still have autopilots on planes. They've been around for 100 years, but we still put pilots in the cockpit. And we still put pilots in the cockpit despite, and this is a horrible statistic, that 50% of all plane crashes are caused by humans. We still need pilots because we need humans with lateral thinking, creativity, intuition, experience, wisdom, and all of those things. We need them to deal with those unexpected situations that AI and systemic systems can't deal with. Now, quantum computing is going to offer much simply because of the massive improvements in processing power. And it's going to allow us to attack far, far bigger problems that we just simply wouldn't have the processing power to do today. But whether the techniques we're using are right, at the moment, we just don't know. And that's kind of it. I've been here for 30 years doing this sort of thing. And AI is this year's big ticket, but it's the day-to-day. It's going to be very normal tomorrow. And it's just a tool. It's still down to us to use it well and to use it wisely and to make the world a better place. And as I say it to everybody at the end of every talk I do, if you go home and think, oh, I wish I'd asked that, then that was a dumb question. So please ask me anything you can imagine.
Amazing. Thanks, Stewart. And Gry actually did do a quick test and looked up banana in ChatGPT. 3 Bs it comes back with. So thanks, Gry, for that little insight. But I guess considering the rapid pace of AI development, what are some, I guess, key ethical considerations we should keep in mind when implementing any AI technologies?
Well, I'm going to go back to my last point, which is we need to do it's down to us to be good humans. It's down to us to do the right thing. It's down to us to make sure that when we use AI, in whatever capacity we use it, and it's going to be in everything we use. You know, AI toothbrushes are a thing, apparently. Now, I don't think they are AI toothbrushes, but you know, they're not. They're certainly not intelligent. I mean, don't ring the doctor for me or the dentist and tell me I've got a filling that needs fixing. But it's down to us to be the good person and do the right thing. Ethics are a human construct. AI doesn't care, so it's human. We must be human about this.
So it's back to your mimicry, you know, it's just copying what we're doing. So if we're ethical, hopefully AI will then follow suit.
If we teach our kids to go out stealing stuff and they end up stealing stuff, you know, gosh, what a surprise, right?
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the most common challenges organizations face when integrating AI into their existing systems?
They look at it and think, I must use AI. That's by far and away the biggest problem that most people have, is they think that it's this magic wand. They just get a bit all Harry Potter on it and magic will happen. It won't. It's a tool. We have to learn to use it exactly the same as we do any other tool. If we think that it's the quick and easy path, we're going to end up being very disappointed very quickly.
Yeah. Although, wouldn't it be nice to have a magic wand sometimes?
Well, wouldn't it just? But here we are, right?
So as AI continues to evolve, like you said, what did you say? It was today's AI is tomorrow's software.
This year's AI is next year's software.
That's it. So what sort of skills and competencies do you think will be most valuable for professionals looking to work in this space in the future?
Oh, I mean, look, for every computer scientist, we need a dozen programmers. Is a sort of a simple lens on the world. We think of computing as being this massively complicated thing, but we have solved many of the difficult problems. What we need is to learn to use the tools.
Yeah.
So really, the skills that we need are going to be the ability to sit down and pay attention and learn, and then critique what we've done. Because the tools are just going to work. They're just going to do stuff. We can automate emails. We can build chatbots. But if we don't take the time to understand and train them and make sure that they do the right thing, then they're going to get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah. An evolving space then.
Yeah. We just have to keep learning. We can't abdicate responsibility. That would be a bad thing. Yes.
So I am going to open it up to everyone here. Your cameras, you can turn your cameras and mic on if you want to talk with Stewart directly. What I'll probably just get you to do is raise your hand. There's a little raise hand button in the bottom of your chat screen. Otherwise, if you don't want to pop your camera on, you can put a question in the chat or the Q&A and I can ask it for you. So I guess just while we're waiting, although Kate, I see you on screen. Did you have a comment for Stewart?
No, thanks for a really interesting, conversation. Just unusual angle. So I would ask just question, I guess for myself, let's say I'm like senior corporate in transformation or whatever, project management, strategy building. What would be, on your opinion, my top 3, tools which I could use? Because for the time being, I use ChatGPT. Yeah, but for just maybe communication plans, this kind of things. So what do you think for,
Well, I'll take you back to one of my slides, which is what is the problem you're trying to solve? Because the tool that solves those problems is the tool that you want to use. So unless you know the problem, you can't possibly choose the tool. All you can do is choose a tool and hope that it fits.
How do you go about finding the tools, Stewart?
Oddly, the simplest thing to do is to ask ChatGPT. Quite seriously, I was looking through some of the post questions yesterday, and I thought, what tools would you recommend? So I went to Microsoft Copilot and said, what tools would you recommend? And it listed off a whole list of things that small businesses might like to use, which, Otter, which records Zoom conversations, that kind of thing. Copilot, ChatGPT, Mid-Journey, if you want to produce images. Anything I say on this recording will look terribly passé and out of date in 12 months time or 2 years and so on. The real answer is go find out, go into Google, go try some, see what works. Go have a play. Go and get your fingers dirty. There's no right answer. There's just the one you use well.
Just don't ask it how many bees in banana.
Yeah. Try. Make sure word-based. Maximum.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. So I do have another question here from Michelle, saying, where are you seeing AI being successfully applied in business here in Australia And how is this different to what's happening other places around the world?
I'll answer the second one first, which is it's not. We're doing exactly the same as everybody else is, which is we're working it out as we go along. And we kind of we get lost in the world of technology occasionally, and we think that the people who are making it have got all the answers, and the reality is they haven't. They've got some answers to the questions that they chose to try and solve, and so we're all kind of bumbling along as a collective entity in the hope that we're making the world a better place. And there's some stuff is going to be successful and some stuff's going to fail miserably. And in the middle of the distribution curve, it's going to be a vast amount of tools that people pick up and use. But Copilot is a good example, Microsoft's new offering, which is just really good at automating simple tasks like replying to emails. It's those, we can pick up the dull, repetitive jobs. We can make sure we can respond to customers promptly. It's an extraordinary thing that if we reply to a customer immediately, even if that reply is only to say, thanks ever so much, we're aware that you've asked us a question. That is a hugely valuable thing from a relationship perspective. So it's things like that. When we start attacking the small jobs that we can do relatively straightforwardly, that's a really good model. And of course, I mean, AI is buried in the middle of so many things where we don't even think of it as AI. It's just something that a software tool does. So it's, anything and everything we use is the right stuff. Pick it up, have a go, solve a problem. You're using it successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know when we were talking about this, doing this session, we obviously spoke about what you were going to present, but we used ChatGPT to write the overview for this with editing afterwards, of course. But yeah, I mean, use it. It's a time saver. So
yeah, well, I used it recently. I have a new venture kicking off in the next few weeks, I hope, and I used it to create the I've forgotten the name of the word now. Damn, that would be a much better anecdote if I could remember the word I was trying to find, wouldn't it? It was a list of rules for the new not-for-profit we're putting together. This is the way we're going to go and do things. It's like, well, can you just make me an outline one? It doesn't have to be right. It has to be closer than blank.
Yeah.
So that's our start point. It's a guide for us. It's a help. It helps us be better at what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charter. That's the word I was looking for. There you go. Finally.
All right. Don't forget, if you did want to talk to Stewart directly, you can pop your camera and mic on and have a little bit of a chat. But there were a couple of questions from the registrations that came through. And one of those is I think we just discussed it, but where do you start with implementing AI? And you said go to ChatGPT and ask it. Is there anything else that you need to take into consideration?
No, it really. Actually, no. I'll rephrase. I'll start again. We need to not think of it as AI. We just need to think of it about in terms of the tools that we're using. It's not about I'm going to use AI. That's kind of the wrong standpoint. It's a much better perspective to come from this. What problems am I solving? How can I solve them perspective, rather than I must try and shoehorn AI in. So when we start looking at it from, if I ask, how can I respond to my customers quickly? Now I've got a question I can answer. I've got a problem I'm trying to solve, and I can go and ask ChatGPT or Copilot, and it will almost certainly say something like, Copilot can automate your email responses for you. ChatGPT, this thing can do that. This thing can do. When we come from that perspective, that's a much easier way to approach it, and a much more likely to lead to success.
Okay, so with that in mind, do you think there's a danger of investing in AI for your business now when things are moving so rapidly and you may have to reinvest all over again later on? Absolutely.
But it's not a danger. It's just fact. It's just reality. It's the same reason we're not driving 1960s delivery vans anymore. The one I buy this year, as long as it's good enough to do the job, then it gets the job done and we're happy. And we all make these buying decisions on a continuum. And the same applies to a technology. And it goes back to what I was saying about the right tool for the job is the one we learn to use and implement best. Provided we do that, it will deliver value for us. If a new tool comes along in 5 years' time that delivers greater value, then we can make simple business decisions about whether the value it can deliver is sufficient. So there's absolutely every risk that we will buy something and it will turn into what I refer to as shelfware. You know, and you can think of shelfware as the many apps you've got on your phone that you bought and now never use. Yeah, businesses do it, but it's on a more expensive scale.
Yeah.
So it will be if we buy tools and not use them successfully or correctly, then they don't deliver the value. Absolutely no good. If we buy them, they deliver value, great. Something comes along that delivers more value, then we can use it and implement it.
And so do you think AI represents a threat to our cognitive skills at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely, for those who choose to abdicate their responsibility to continue to maintain their brain.
Yeah.
If we give it up and say, I'm a fat, slovenly middle-aged, well, not fat. Yeah, I'm a slightly overweight middle-aged man. That's because I sit at my desk far too long and I don't do anywhere near enough exercise. And I drive the car rather than walking. This same applies to our brain. If we go rely on tools to do it for us, then our brain will atrophy, and so it will be. So it's really important, I think, that, and I made this talk about the importance of critical thinking, that we must apply good human skills and keep working on improving our skills whilst we're using other tools to help us along. We can't just shovel it out the corner and hope we get lucky.
Yeah. Because I guess there's a lot to say for always keeping your mind busy, though, AI or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and body too, for that matter. My wife has reminded me I must be doing some more work outside. Yeah?
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So, Stewart, a big thank you for joining us today and giving your insights on, what AI is and what it's going to look like for the future. It's been a really good conversation. So, thank you very much. Everyone, don't forget you can download Stewart's book, Doing It for Money. It's in the handout section there on the right-hand side of your screen, or it will be in the wrap-up email that we send out a little bit later this afternoon. Please fill out the survey that you will see either pop up on your screen very shortly, or it will also be when you log out today, you will see it there as well. We would love to hear your insights, your feedback, and also what you'd like to know about moving forward in these sessions. We are always welcoming new people to our community. So if you'd like to get involved in Rarebirds further, feel free to chat to me or someone on the Rarebirds team. We're always looking for amazing mentors to join our community as well. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining today. I hope to see you again at the next session we host. Have a great day and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.